folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective, each time asking ourselves, what happened today? And what might it tell us about the coming days? I do the show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. Folks, we had a breakout today, and you know, as hard as it is to believe and as difficult as it was to achieve, there is a breakout, and now it's going to be a question of does it stick and can they push higher. We had the Dow Jones up 75, 16,532. We had the S&Ps up 13, 1885.52, eclipsing the old high of 1884, 40 I believe it was, by a buck. Composite up a powerful 69 points, 1.64%, 42.68, as they come rushing back into all those names they threw away the last 2 weeks. The NDX also up huge, 62.66, 1.74%, 36.58 and a third is where it closed. And Russell also powers higher again tonight, 1566 higher, 1.34%, 1188.70. As you can see, just looking at those numbers, it was a rush back into stocks. Everything they threw away the last couple of weeks, they rushed back into them on the NDX, on the NASDAQ, on the Russell. If we look at the oil market, it was down a couple bucks today. We had gold down about $4. They're all down slightly after hours. The dollar was flat. We got the ECB BOE rate decision coming up Thursday morning. We had PMI flash numbers out of China last night, a little bit weaker than expected. I guess that just means that they're going to ease, right? It's all news is good news again all of a sudden. Same thing here with respect to our PMI. It was okay. Manufacturing index not bad, nothing great, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Yet we power ahead. Let's look at the charts. If we look at the Dow Jones gets over a swing point high. It's got 2 more sitting up there. It's trying to get over both of those. 16.15 is 16.520 is that one. 16.525, and it closes at 16.532. So you got 3 swing point highs. You take every one of them out on one fatal swoop. That should lead to another leg higher off this move. In other words, 2 to 3 bars is usually the way it works. Certainly you can go 5, 6, 10 bars, but you usually expect on one time frame multiple swing points to take you 2 to 3 bars higher. Let's pop up the weekly on this guy, and we got a bad quote there, but that's got a high, so it's not quite over that one yet. 16.588, and you're at 16.532. So 50 points higher gets you over the other high on the other time frame. As we talked about, the S&P 500 breaks out. The S&P gallops higher, 2 swing point highs. It just printed this one yesterday. Doesn't have the volume compared to that one, but it does get over it. So again, multiple swing points usually leads 2 to 3 bars potential on the upside. You've already had a nice move up. Now the question is, can they extend it? Now, if you look back, the last time we broke higher, we gapped down the next day. And we've seen this scenario before where you can break higher, but you can't carry. So tomorrow will be a key day, and can they extend this thing higher? There's not a lot of news tomorrow, so there's kind of a vacuum other than some Fed speakers to take this thing up and stretch it higher. And if it does that, then it has a much better chance of holding, right? Because then once you get up here, when you retrace, you're coming back into that big bar, which is hard to break down. So tomorrow, key day on the S&P 500. And if you want a sneak preview of whether or not it's probably going to hold and try to extend forward, you just have to go over and take a look at the Russell. Russell, last night we talked about key index, and the reason for it is the Russell has been a good indicator all along. Russell gets over the breakdown bar. More importantly, the Russell breaks down the retest regen, right? Yesterday it was It was towards the high of it. It was coming into the bottom of that one. It has still another one to go, so it has this one to get over. But you know, at this point, you're back into the big bar over here. And you know, when I look at all of that, that tells me the Russell is trying to say it's going to go higher. So I would think that the Russell is going to test back to the highs. That's probably going to give the S&P the extension that it needs. That also, if we look over at the index, the NDX and the NASDAQ, that's going to get them over the breakdown bar back in to try to break down their retest regenerates. And if all those things take place, which is certainly looking like they're going to try to break them tomorrow, then that would pretty much wipe out all the damage that was done on this ABCD down that took place. And once more, we're going to be looking at another one of those, you know, here we go, V-shaped reversals back the other way, right, new highs. And that's just what this feels like as it's getting started here. We've seen it so many times, and it looks to me like it's happening again. Now, I don't want to caution so much as to just, you know, tone down a little bit, you know, all the glee that's out there, in that as this market has continued to advance, what you're going to notice, and if we went back farther, you'd see it even more clearly. And I'm on the NASDAQ weekly right now, is the swing point low, the distance between these are getting less and less for the most part, right? So this one, very close. This one's not too far away. This one's not too far away. Now, if this one prints, it's going to be a little bit farther away. If it's a fake out and we come back, then of course it could be lower. But the extensions on the way up have been tighter. Now the question is, can you really extend and really push this thing higher or not, and then leave a farther up, you know, swing point low here? Because this will, after 6 bars, will turn into one. But that's 6 more bars. We're on bar 1 right now. That means you got to go 6 more before this one ever prints to be a low, right? And we definitely could be back down here in 6 weeks. So I'm curious as to how these play out. If you know, and what you're looking for here is, I mean, there's nothing magic to this, right? What you're really looking for is this thing kind of rolling over, right? Because when it starts to roll over, you know, that's when you want to really be careful. In other words, when you start breaking back up here and you can't get new highs, that's a problem. Now, we've had huge divergence in that these indexes, and if we pull them back over and we look at the dailies again, these indexes, these being the NASDAQ, the Russell, and so forth, you know, their correction top to bottom was a lot more severe than you saw on the S&P. The S&P never broke a swing point low on the daily, right? It's still holding up there at the highs. And as a refresher, I'll bring it back up, but you know, this guy never broke the lows. It's set 2 swing point lows up here, ended up setting 2 swing point lows at the highs, and now it's breaking those highs without ever breaking the lows. That's a huge divergence between those 2 indexes. And usually it's the other one that you want to lead, not this one. In other words, you usually want the NASDAQ and the Russell to lead you higher, not the S&P 500. So if I take that into consideration, and I'm kind of considering, okay, how is this going to work out? Yeah, we can get the 2 to 3 bar push, but I really wouldn't be surprised if this thing comes right back in after that. And the reason for that is, as this pushes up, if in fact that's what we get tomorrow, these other indexes are just simply going to be coming back up to resistance zones, as you can see right above this one. And then that's going to make it tough, unless they really do take off, right? It's going to make it tough for the S&P to continue to extend. All right, let's go over and look at the sectors and see if we got any good things over there that tell us something. I had a pretty busy day, so I'm kind of looking at these first time with you, so let's just flip through them and see what we got. So starting with the tech, transports. Transport's still range trading up to the highs. Tomorrow it's going to attack those highs, and we'll see if it can break out. So right now, range trade there. It's not negative, not positive, just nothing. SMHs, same story. These guys have been on fire ever since the breakout in February. They, just like the S&P, have not pulled back. And if they had pulled back like the rest of the NDX, we'd have seen some serious selling. But they never did. They held up there, a lot of volume. Now today, boom, volume comes in. They're pressing highs again, breaking out one more time, and just extending on the weekly. XLB also going to test the swing point high tomorrow. So we're going to get test of swing point highs tomorrow, along with the S&P trying to extend. IYT, XLB, let's see the rest of these. Now XLE had already broken out. It extended today. XLE is trying to extend that 2 to 3 bars on the longer term time frame, which is the weekly, because it broke out on the weekly. So this is bar number 1 of that breakout. Here you've got an extension. This one doesn't look bad. It's doing what it's supposed to. XLF, this one looked weaker most of the day, and yes, it wasn't that strong. No volume coming in, still range trading. This one is going to take a while to get back to the highs, it looks like. So XLF, okay, but nothing special. So we got 2 that are going to try to test swing points tomorrow. Now here's one that just broke it, XLI. That's a positive, so we've got a nice positive one here. That's your industrials. That's a good one. So that's, I got 1 positive, 2 tests tomorrow, and actually 2 positives, the SMHs as well. Here's another breakout, technology. 36.65, yeah, it's breakout. Doesn't have the volume, but it's over the highs. So that's 3 breakouts tonight. Let's go to, and the XLP, XLU pulled back today. So they got their breakout, doing an immediate retest regen, so there's nothing wrong with that on the XLP, and the same thing here on the XLU. So both of those trade down today. That's quote-unquote safety sectors. That's not surprising in a big up day on breakout day. Here's the XLV. XLV looks to me like it is going to get back up here and test, but probably fell into this zone. And the reason for that is a big piece of this breakdown had to do with the IBB, the BBH, the biotech indexes, biotech companies. As you come back up here, if the volume really doesn't expand, which I doubt it will, and if you can't get over this, right, this little zone right here, if you can't get through there, I suspect this thing's going to sell right back down. That's going to put more pressure back on the NDX if that's the case. So that's still a negative in my mind. XLY, it can get another little bit of push here, but it still doesn't look good. Here's the XLY. This one got a decent push today. It's coming back in to do a retest regen now. So I got 3 nice breakouts, 2 tests tomorrows. 2 of them that really not do anything, and then a couple of them that are, they look like they can run another day. So sector-wise, not bad, not great, but certainly can support a little bit more of a move. But I don't see these powering the market higher. The only 2 is the semis and the industrials, and potentially technology if it can power again tomorrow and get over all the highs. Let's look at the OX markets. I know that bonds sold off some today, so let's take a look at those first. See how they came back. Okay, so they come back. They got no volume still. All right, so this low is 107.61, and given the way this is looking, I would expect they're going to test that tomorrow. And fell. In other words, they'll test into support and fell. Now, one thing that's important to recognize here, let me see, this high was 109.34. So this is interesting. You don't see this very often, but the case here, you have a retest regen zone here, right? But you actually have the higher high over here, so this really is the quote-unquote first retest regen. And so this is the one that has to break. In other words, you got to trade down below it to fail to regenerate higher in this case. So tomorrow as it tests into here, it will be a big test to see if in fact this is going to become the big range trade again and this was a failed breakout, or if in fact this thing is going to try to do another ABCD structure on a deeper retrace, right, to try to take it higher again. So TLT, and you know, the reason I keep paying attention to it is if money runs into these, it's usually because the market's not doing well. As you see, market going up 3 days in a row, this pulling back 3 days in a row. Dollar didn't do anything today. Let's see if there was any volume on it. I know it was down early. No volume. There's no selling pressure. Dollar wants to go higher. If the gold acknowledges that, gold's going to have a tough time. Gold traded down again today and stayed under that low, 123.57. And it did. And let me see, did it get to the lows? 123.11. That just about finished off the ABCD structure. So this appears to me that this one is about done, which is going to be very interesting if the dollar wants to run higher. You know, can this reverse with the dollar trying to push higher? That will be the test on that. And if it does, that tells you there's more strength in gold than you expect. Let me look at the other shorter term maturities. Okay, so they're going to test, these are for 10 years, 7 to 10s on the bonds. So they're going to test those lows tomorrow, and they're coming down with pretty good volume. So that may say that the 20-year is not going to be able to hold. Let's see, even the shorter end of the curve probably is already broken then. And they did way back here. And they're just holding. So that looks kind of negative actually. And even though the long end is holding up, the short end is having a tough time. So you're getting a steepening of the curve. Okay, that's interesting. Let's look at the continuous commodity index. Just get a feel for what's still happening there. That looks like a bad bar, but this one hasn't been able to go anywhere. Let me see what the DBA looks like, which is more of the grains, and same sort of thing. So after a huge run up, this one's kind of pulling back a little bit. And let me take a quick peek at oil, and then I'll go to your questions. Actually, yeah, I'll do your questions first, and then I'll try to shoot over to the foreign markets. I should say overseas. I don't like the word foreign. Okay, so that's just a pullback. It's a big range. I don't see anything special there. All right, so Federico has a couple of questions. Let's try to tackle those first. Two questions. One is THM. Take a look at THM. Let's see what this guy looks like. And then he's still holding HY. Didn't trigger his stops on that. Well, that's good since we're getting a turn here. Now, last night I was talking, and I think it was Zach that was on. And yeah, it was Zach, and he asked about 4 different stocks, and you know, all of them, 3 of the 4 didn't look bad. I just thought they could pull back more, and I really wasn't willing to jump into them with the market acting as it was at the top of the range, S&Ps in particular. But they did break out. And so when the general market starts potentially to leg up, right, then the money usually comes back into those. So I'm going to flip through those in a minute here just to see what they did today out of curiosity. So this is Tower Hill Mines. This is in the gold sector. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. If gold flips around, you know, your weekly's a little deeper. But if gold flips around, this is probably going to get some juice and you can get some fast moves on it. I don't know where you're planning your stop, but you almost need it. You know, the hard thing here is you have to play a tight stop, because percentages, that's 64 on a close tonight of 77, 13 on 77. That's a pretty heavy percentage. So your stop has to be just underneath here. That's 75. It traded down to 72. If I took this, I would put a stop right up underneath it, like 69. I'd give it almost nothing. So I try to get it down, 2-3 cents cheaper in the morning. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. It looks like it can run back to the bottom of this bar at least, which is 91 cents. HY is the other one. Let's take a quick look at that one. And on HY we have, okay, so your stops were underneath here evidently, so that's good. And you got a high volume high. You came down with some pretty good volume 3 times into this bar. I don't know where you got into this guy, but what I would do is I would try to take a little bit of profit somewhere up in this area, right? This zone up here. And then you leave some on just in case it breaks out. But I would try to take a little bit of profits up into here, especially if it can't get over the swing point high, right? Because that coincides with this volume bar. So, and I would pull my stops up now. Right? You got 3 bars down, big volume, decent volume, I should say. You hit a low. You probably had your stop up underneath here. On the way back up, I'd use the top of this bar now, and I just wouldn't give it any room. And so I would just, make it go up. If you're in it for a longer term trade, I'm looking at the weekly over here as I'm doing this. If you're looking at a longer term trade, then you could keep your stops lower and just take your risk, right? Because here it came back, did a retest regen on that swing point high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I did a retest regen on swing point high. So I would probably, if I'm doing the weeklies and trading it on that time frame, then you keep your stops lower and you just trade around that core position you're holding. Let me go. I want to quickly flip into these others that I had questions about out of curiosity right quick. So Tesla, I think, was one that was asked. A little bit of a bounce today. VISN was another one. Yeah, got a good bounce. OCLS, I think, was another one. And you can see here, stocks that were sold down hard, they got decent bounces off of that push, right? That push that happened today in the markets. This one I didn't like, OCLS. And this one didn't get any move, Almost Family. So something's wrong with this one. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong with this stock. This one's going to trade even deeper. So 2 of the 4 were okay, but I thought they'd come in deeper given the general market. But in fact, when the market, the general market doesn't want to come down, kind of changes the equation, right? Let's see here. We got IYR. Let me quickly look at IYR. This is the real estate sector. I liked this trade about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And it's coming right back up. Had good volume today. Yeah, see, the hard thing right now for me is when I look over at the S&Ps and what I just said, right? I think you can get to 2 to 3 bars extension, but then you get sucked right back in. And, I don't know if we're going to really break out or not and leg higher, right? When I think about legging higher, I'm talking, 3, 4, 5%. I don't know if we're going to get 3 or 4, 5%. These markets are extended, have been extended, right? Now, one could argue that they're simply consolidating the huge gains from last year. Maybe that's true. But I don't see the structure, like I was saying, I'd rather see technology leading me higher than the S&P. I'd rather see the small caps leading me higher. Yeah, they're making a run now, and maybe they will. But until they get over those key places, where the resistance is, it's hard for me to get extremely excited. Yeah, you can play 2 to 3 bars to the upside, but I think until you get the rest of that right going, it makes it harder to think longer term. So where I'm going with this is with this one, you've already come way off the lows. You really just and that's got why I was thinking about it. You really need to get over these 2 bars, right? You got your breakdown bars here. You got to get over those to really get this thing going. Because now, if you were to buy here, where are you going to put your stops? Well, you almost need to put them at least under 67, and you're shooting for potentially as little as 68.5. So, you know, your risk reward is not good. So I think here you just simply have to let this one show you and go and break over these. Or let it pull back first and then buy it. One of the two. Let me pop over. I have about 4 minutes. Let me pop over because I know that the overseas markets were breaking out. Let me spot check these guys. Let me get the two in Toronto and Australia first for my subscriber friends. Okay, so this one would not break down. I mean, it did break trend, but it's right back at the highs again. That's Canada. Let me see Australia. Australia would look like it should bump higher last night, I think it was. And it did a little bit. Looks like they were off at night. And it bumps a little bit higher, but it's struggling. Brazil, nice big spike up over the last 7-8 bars. I think they extended again today. That's a failure tonight, though. So that one looks like it's going to try to come back in. And the other one that was extending hard was Hong Kong. Let me look at that one. And let's see here. Hong Kong extends. So Hong Kong is over the swing point high. Wow, that looks like it's going to try to fill the gap now. That's a good extension. That's an ABCD structure that looks like it's done as well. Let's see, 21,137. 21,137. So it's about 870 points. Onto that would be 22,5, 22,580. We're at 22,440. Yeah, it looks to me like it's going to extend farther and finish off the ABCD structure. So Hong Kong looks like Asia will try to trade higher again. Let me pop into the DAX and the FTSE. So the DAX, well, that just didn't go anywhere today. I thought they had a decent day. They really did an inside day, which is interesting. So you're coming into the BOE ECB rate decision. It looks to me like these guys are going to hesitate into that decision. So that's the DAX. Here's the FTSE. And again, that's actually better. That's a takeaway bar from yesterday. So that one looks to trade a little bit higher. CAX gets over, has less volume than the swing point high. That's a failure at the highs. I don't think Europe's going to give us any juice in the morning. So I would expect some sort of flat opening tomorrow. And then it's going to be all up to you know, the buyers. Do they want to pay higher prices or not in terms of GSPC and the other indexes here domestically? It's going to be a tough road. They've got the momentum. Sectors not bad. Bonds going to test a little bit lower tomorrow. The breakouts on the Dow, the breakouts on the S&P, that should lead to 2 to 3 bars higher. We'll see if they can do it. I like the setup for a couple bars, but then I think they're going to drag it right back in. Folks, thanks for joining me. Have yourself a great night. Take care. Tell a friend. Tell two. I'm LA. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have a great night. Good night.